We are going to do Psalm 61 today. Psalm 61 is not very long. When I was looking at the 60s, this was the one that jumped out at me. It's the first one that I wanted to do with you guys. I think it's good and fun, has some good images in it, and it is, I noticed that the Psalms in the 60s region have the same kind of vibe, the same kind of issues, or the same kind of need. And so if you look at this psalm, you'll get a good idea about what the other ones in 61, 62, 63, all the way up. I think you'll like that. So let's look at this one together. I'm going to read it straight through, and we'll talk about it. As you can see, it's only 8 verses. It's not very long. This is Psalm 61 for the chief musician on a stringed instrument of David, the Psalm of David. Here we go. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I call unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a refuge for me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will dwell in thy tabernacle forever. I will take refuge in the covert of thy wings. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Thou wilt prolong the king's life. His years shall be as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. Oh, prepare loving kindness and truth, that they may preserve him. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. It's a nice 8-verse psalm. So think about it for a little bit. Do you guys have any thoughts? Anything you want to say? Just a second, Alice. I'll turn it back up in case you wanted to read it on the screen. What do you think, Alice?
I noticed that it has the thing about the wings again.
Wings? Okay. I forgot the word wings. Is it towards the beginning or the end? Maybe you guys can help me find it.
Kind of in
Verse 4.
Okay. In the covert of thy wings. That's right. We had that line before. I'll underline that in light blue. Good catch. I will take refuge in the covert of thy wings. And what does that mean, taking refuge in the covert of thy wings?
It's kind of like maybe a little pocket or something.
A pocket where?
In the wings that he can sit in.
So I'll write that. Refuge.
Mr. Dan,
Yeah?
that reminded me like of the angels on the tabernacle, and it said tabernacle, so I was drawing the tabernacle.
The Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah,
Yeah, I never thought.
angels on the tabernacle too.
Yeah. So here's the Ark of the Covenant, right? They'd have the poles to hold it, right? And then you'd have the angels, and then their wings would cover over it, right?
Yeah.
I accidentally drew this one too big, and these would be the angels. I'm gonna draw them praying. There's their hands praying, and that this was the seat of God, right? And I didn't think about. I don't think this is the same. This doesn't mean the same words, but Dennison, that's a neat connection. This would be like a hiding place under the wings, and this is actually where God. This is called God's seat, so he would be sitting on top of it. And you're right, on the tabernacle it had the wings. So that's a neat connection. I hadn't thought of that. What else do you notice in the psalm? What other thoughts, either words or ideas?
It said that we dwell in the tabernacle. So I was thinking, was the tabernacle like built? Was the tabernacle there? Was the tabernacle there?
Yep. Well, David was alive when they used the tabernacle. Jack, yours says tent. I'll write that on the side. Okay. And so when David was king, even when David was a kid, they were using the tabernacle, not the temple, because it's David's son who built the temple. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it also said a strong tower from the enemy.
Yeah. And so those are things we've seen before, right? Tabernacle. I'm going to write tent. Tabernacle means tent, and it's easier to write tent. And strong tower. And get better. Tent and tower. And one of the things about it, talking about the tabernacle or talking about the tent, this could be talking about the actual tabernacle, the actual place of worship of God, or it could be talking, does God actually exist as a tower?
No.
You can't go inside the tower of God, but the idea is that God is strong like a tower. So it could be not just talking about the worship tabernacle, but going into, I think, Jack, your translation says his tent.
Yeah. Well,
That sounds, your tent, that sounds like going into God's house. Doesn't have to be the temple, but like going into the place of God. Because was anyone allowed to just live in the temple or live in the tabernacle?
No.
No. But that's what this says. I will dwell in your tabernacle forever. Well, David, that's against the law. No. I don't think he means I'm going to break the law and live in the tabernacle. I'm going to live with God forever. I think that's what he's talking about. And this is right in the middle of the psalm, okay? It's 8 verses long, and it's right there in the middle. Sometimes when you find something in the very middle of a story or in the middle of a psalm, you're finding some of the key ideas. And this being with God is a big part of this psalm. So I'm going to...
Not wanting to leave him ever. That's come up before.
Not wanting to leave God ever. You've heard that in other parts of the Psalms.
He doesn't want to die, not because of death or whatever, but to stay alive and serve him.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to stick it actually in here. That bad one I don't like. Not leave God. Yeah, I'm going to put little arrows because that is what I think is a big part of what this psalm is about. So we're going to look at that now that we're going to go through the verse by verse part, okay? So let's do verse by verse. I always love hearing what you guys find in the psalm. Okay. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. Have we heard this kind of a statement before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that mean it's boring to hear it again?
No, it's a good cry.
Yeah. He is praying. Those aren't very, I don't know how to draw good prayer hands. But he is praying. Let me get my color pencils out. And he is sending that prayer up to God. Okay, please, God, hear my prayer. From the end of the earth, I will call unto you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. And so if you want, you can draw the whole earth, and you can draw like, let's see, Spain, and Italy, and Greece, and Turkey, and then down for Africa, right? And David was living all the way down here in this little blue speck there with the what's it called? That river, the Jordan River, right? Okay, so that's where David's living, and you can draw the other things there. So does that mean that David left this side and went all the way up to Greenland so that he could pray to God? Did he go to Greenland? No.
No.
No. What does it mean, from the end of the earth, I will call unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed? What's he trying to say, do you think?
I'll call to you from everywhere.
From everywhere? Yeah. Well, what's the do you think, here's the problem. Okay, this isn't really a problem, I'm pretending. If David goes all the way to Greenland, God won't know where he is and can't hear David. Is that true?
No.
No.
No. Remember, Jonah tried to run away from God, right? So anywhere David goes, from the end of the earth, I will call unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed. And so David has this feeling of anywhere I go, I'll put end of the earth in green. And so here in this verse, he is close to God where in verse 2? This is a weird question I'm asking you. Even if he's at the end of the earth, he can still be close to God and pray to him. And I think that that's, Thomas, kind of what you were talking about, right? To not leave God. Whoa, here we go. To not leave God. David says, even if I'm at the end of the earth and I'm going to fall off the edge into outer space, can David still call on God?
Yes.
That's a good idea.
And
Yeah.
at this time, they didn't realize the Earth was a ball, right? So they literally thought there was an end of the Earth.
I do think they thought it was. I don't know if they were thinking it was flat at this time. I was just kind of making that joke about falling off the edge. But I think one of the points is the way that people draw maps and even ideas. You always have an edge, and I think that that's what he means by the end of the earth. But I could be wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Even at the very end of the earth, he's still close to God, right? And why is he calling out to God in verse 2? Because his heart is overwhelmed. He's sad or he's upset. But if he's overwhelmed, he can still use God to help his heart, okay? Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Well, David's pretty high on this earth, but God is a rock that's even higher, right? Actually, this rock is so huge that I'm drawing here on the globe that it's actually going to make the earth kind of change orbit. But you get the idea, right? That's a big rock. Big rock. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. I think that's used in one of the church songs I've sung before. For thou hast been a refuge for me, a strong tower from the enemy. Well, we can stick a tower on top of the rock. Strong tower from the enemy. Good grief, this is getting a little bit too big. The earth is going to fall apart if it has all this stuff built onto the side of it, but that's okay. Thou hast been a refuge for me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will dwell in your tabernacle forever. Let's just keep drawing stuff on this earth. Here's a tent. We're drawing a crazy earth with things on it. Let's just keep it going. There is the tent. It's not a very good tent. I don't even know if it looks like a tent. Pretend that that's a tent. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's dark orange on the outside and I'll put brown on the inside. All right, just pretend. Okay, now you know it's a tent because I'm writing tent. Otherwise, no one would know that that's a tent, but that's okay. Tent. All right. You've been my tabernacle or the tent forever. I will dwell in your tent forever. I will take refuge under the covert of thy wings. We can draw a big wing. There's the feathers. All right. For you, O God, have heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. You will prolong the king's life. His years shall be as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. Okay, I'm going to talk about this section for a bit. In this first part of the psalm, listen to me. And then what does he say here in verse 5? For you, O Lord, have heard my vow.
You heard my vow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he said, hear me, attend unto my cry. You have heard my vows. Maybe I'll do it yellow since there's already blue there. You have heard. And so he wants God to hear him. And does God hear him? Yes. God has heard him. And so this is what God has done after God heard him. Let's look at all these things. You've heard me. You've given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. You will prolong the king's life. His years will be as many generations. He'll abide before God forever. And so we're going to talk about these things. So here is David. I guess David was a king. Maybe he was singing about Saul, but maybe he wrote this psalm when he was a king. We can draw David here. His ears and give him hair. But above his hair, he's got his crown on because now he is king. I'm thinking that maybe he's king. There's his crown. And here's his beard. And he's there and he's saying, "Hi guys, I did this psalm." He has a whole lot of fingers. I don't know why I gave him so many fingers. Okay, so there's David. He's got the bobbly things on top of his crown. I'll make him bobbly later. There we go. All right. You've given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. What is a heritage? This is a hard verse. Jack, what does yours say in verse 5? Can you read verse 5 in your translation? Of
those who fear your name.
Okay, so it says the same thing. That's a hard one to understand. What do you think it means? Do you know what a heritage is?
Sometimes you get inherit something.
Okay, it's connected to the idea of inheriting, right? And think about the Israelites. They would get the land in the promised land, and they pass it on to their sons, and then they pass it on to their sons, and they pass it on to their sons. And that was one of the ways that they were connected to God, because they were living in God's land, and they would have this heritage. And David is receiving from God the good things, the good heritage, and it's from people who fear thy name. Is it good to fear God's name? Yeah, so he's being connected with God and God's the fear of God's name, the heritage. You will prolong the king's life. Is that a good thing?
Yes.
Yes. How do I draw David having a long life?
Maybe
Maybe
you
draw him really old.
With lots and lots of sand in it.
I like that idea.
Oh, Mr. Dan,
Yeah.
maybe you should draw him young, and then maybe you should draw him really old,
That would be another way of doing it. Yeah.
and then the arrow until really old.
I'm gonna do the hourglass thing just because it'll work. So here's the hourglass. And lots of sand. Here's the sand coming down in. And I'm trying to say that there's a whole lot of sand in the top. Now, technically, this is an impossible hourglass, but that's okay.
Write David on it.
And, oh yeah, this is the David. That's the David Lifetimer hourglass. So he's got a long life in his hands. That's a funny way of drawing it. Good idea. And so David is getting the heritage. He's getting the good things. He's having a good long life. His years will be like many generations. And David had many generations after him, right? He had lots of sons, and his sons were the kings. And even Jesus is one of his great grandsons. So there's a lot of generations there. He shall abide before God forever. Does David abide before God forever? How would you answer that question? Does he?
Yes.
No, not forever, but he most of the time.
Okay, so there's the idea about was he good or not good, right? Most of the time he was good. Thomas, you were saying he does abide with him. There's a lot of ways we can answer this question. Thomas, you does abide with him forever. Here's one of the things. Did David die and turn into bones and dust?
No. Yes.
Yes.
He did. He died. He turned into bones and dust, just like all of us will, right? But is David, even though he's dead and dust, is he still with God?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe he's even closer to God. And so there is well, not going to get that marker. Thomas, you can get that if you want. Knocking a lot of stuff over here. There is an arrow up, an arrow down. Making a lot of messes over here. There's an arrow up and an arrow down of the connection between David and God. Thanks, Alice. There's an arrow up and an arrow down showing that they are connected together. There's this abiding that's going on. Can you and I have that abiding with God forever?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the idea there is that, hey, Thomas, go ahead and get her. The idea is that this is, no, just go get Mary. This is the good thing, that we can abide with God, up with him and him down with us forever. Even when we turn into bones and dust, that's okay, because we're still going to be with God. And that's a good thing. All right, let's look at some more of these verses of the way that God helps. Oh, prepare loving kindness and truth that they may preserve him. Preserve who? Yeah, I think it's David. But not just David, because one of the things he's talking about here is the king. And so this could be a psalm that you would sing for all the kings that would come when they were going to become a king. So this could be a song for David. It could be a song for Solomon, and it can be a song for all the other kings that would come after that. And maybe they would even share this shirt and keep sewing their names on the shirt. Who knows? Verse 8. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. These are verses for us, right? We want to sing and praise God's name forever, and we want to daily perform our vows. What does it mean, daily perform our vows?
Like, we promised that we would worship God as much as we could, and we did it.
Okay, that could be one of the things. Every day, worshiping God. What else could it be? Here's something about vows. They had a lot of vows in the Old Testament. I vow to do this. Jesus said, you don't need to take vows. You don't need to do oaths. He talked about that in the Sermon on the Mount. He just said, let your yes be yes. So if your mom says, I need you to be good today, and you say, okay, well, be good. Do it. That's what this psalm is talking about. I'm going to do the things that I need to do. I'm going to be the person that I need to be. I'm going to worship God. I'm going to be friends with my neighbors. I'm not going to be ugly to people. And even if my little brother is the most annoying, most terrible thing in the world, I'm going to be a wonderful person to him because it's still okay. That's not always easy to do, is it? But that's what this psalm is about. All right, I'm going to read through it again, and if you have any other questions or something, let me know. But let's read through it and get a sense for the whole psalm, and then we'll be done. Psalm 61. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I call unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for thou hast been a refuge for me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will dwell in your tabernacle forever. I will take refuge in the covert of your wings. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. You will prolong the king's life. His years shall be as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. O prepare loving kindness and truth, that they may preserve him. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. What will preserve the king? Something was said back here that's going to preserve the king. Preserve the king by loving kindness
And he's going to worship
and
God.
by truth. Well, no, he's going to vow to do that, Alice. But the words that I was looking for were loving kindness and truth. And those two words are neat. Loving kindness can mean mercy. And so this means David needs loving kindness,
You can't see it, Mr. Dan.
and he needs truth. All right, and I'm going to say that that's the pants that he's wearing. He's got very baggy pants, apparently. Any little feet. All right, and there's so that he's there he is. See, there's his hand. He needs loving kindness to be preserved as a good king, right? He needs to do it. He needs to wear the pants of loving kindness and truth. But do you know what else he needs?
God?
He needs God to act with loving kindness and truth for him too, doesn't he? Loving kindness and truth. He needs God's mercy. He needs God's truth. So which one do you think it's talking about? His pants or the arrow coming down on him?
Arrow.
Both.
I think it's both. I think he gets the arrow first, Alice, so that he can then learn how to behave with the pants of loving kindness and truth.
Mhm.
Now, here's something. If you ask your mom and dad about the pants of loving kindness and truth, they will have no idea what you're talking about, okay? I just made that up. But that's what's going to preserve us. That's what's going to preserve us. God's loving kindness and truth coming down on us and our wearing the pants of loving kindness and truth and actually doing that and being that together. That makes sense? Oh, dropped another colored pencil. All right, do you guys have any questions about that psalm? Any other thoughts? It's just a,
Nothing. No. Oh, Mr. Dan,
yeah.
it said Selah again.
What?
It said Selah again.
Yes, it said Selah again, which I think is something about a pause or a rest. Yes, Alice?
I noticed that the hourglass just started flowing. Like the sun
Yep.
just
Yep.
started.
So he's got a lot of time. All right. Well, in that case, we're going to be done with this class, and I will see you later. See you later.
Thank
guys.
you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Dan.
Take care.